Hey, what is going on everyone, and welcome back to another YouTube video. My name is Noah Shaw, or Ford6Fo, and today we're going to be doing a little bit more work on the 2022 F350 Platinum Dually build. We're going to be completely tearing it apart for paint match. Let's go ahead and dive right into it and get started. So now we're going to go ahead, drop the dually back onto the ground, and get to removing all the factory pieces for paint match. Now back on the ground, we're going to start removing all the lighting, the mirrors, and all the accessories, but check out how that exhaust tip setup turned out. I think it came out awesome. Let me know what y'all think in the comments below. So we're going to go ahead and start on the front end removal process. We're going to go ahead and pop the hood open, just like so, and we'll take off the whole top trim with our trim tool. All these little tiny plastics, pop all those off, and start on the removal process on the grill. If yours like mine with the high flow, instead of having the little plastic coverings right here for the bolts, we have this full piece that goes all the way across, so I'm going to get a trim tool with a little bit of blue painter's tape behind it and pry it right here, or you can just remove it back like so. But now real quickly, I'm going to go ahead and pop up all these little plastic trim pieces. If you don't have a trim tool, you can use a flathead and kind of work it back and forth just like this and lift it up and move them all to the side, and I'll come back to y'all when we get all these plastic pieces off. And we're going to go ahead and lift it up and set it to the side, just like so. Then moving on to the top, we've got 6 10mm bolts all the way across, and then there's going to be a 10mm nut on each side. From the back, from behind, there's going to be that 10mm nut that you're going to go ahead and throw on a little 1/4" ratchet with a deep well 10mm. So I'm going to go ahead, grab the stubby impact. Just like that, got all those off. And I'm going to pick every single piece of hardware up and set it aside so we remember where to put it back in when reinstalling. My favorite setup to get the back nuts is a little 1/4" ratchet with the 10mm socket. Sometimes you can use a little extension, but this should work perfect. And we're just going to slide it in from the back and start breaking that one loose that holds in the front of the grill. And once you get it loose enough, you can just go ahead and take it out by hand and repeat the process. And you can see I put a little bit of masking tape on the trim tool to pop the one side off here. That exposes another 10mm bolt that we're going to get with an extension on the impact. I'm going to do the same thing on this side with my little trim tool. And once we get it popped off, we can just pull that piece off and set it aside as well. And the last 2 bolts on each side of the grill holding it in, and those 10mm on the extension. And they are loose. Now that we've got all the bolts loose, you can just go ahead and gently start pulling back in the grill. So you pop those clips off all the way across. And then from behind the grill, you're going to lean it back towards you, and there's going to be one little plug-in for the camera and the little windshield wiper nozzle. You're just going to pull that black clip off and set it aside. Go ahead, pop the bottom out now on both sides. Set the grill aside. Now that we got the grill all off, I'm going to go ahead and move on to the headlights. There are also going to be some 10mm bolts holding the headlights in. One of them was connected to the grill here. Then we've got 2 up top, one here and one here. And then there's going to be the 1 bolt on the side. You just pull back this little gasket and use a little 1/4" ratchet right there to get that bolt out. So I'm going to come up top here, pop off both on both sides. Super easy. And then I'm going to move on to our side bolts on both sides because we already have this 1 bolt that holds on the headlight off from the grill. So on the last ones on the side of the headlight, it's going to be a little 13mm. Put a little extension on my 1/4" ratchet. Just going to break it loose. You can use an impact too if you want, but I just like to be careful with these ones to make sure they come off without getting broken. And just like that, the passenger side bolt is out. I'm going to repeat that process on the driver's side. So on this truck, I'm actually going to go ahead and paint all of the bumper plastics too. So I'm going to pop off these bottom, middle, center ones so we can pull the whole bumper off to get the fog surroundings out and the top pieces right there. Now that I got the entire middle center plastic off, I'm gonna go ahead and get all the 19mm bolts holding on the front bumper. There's a total of 8, 4 on each side with their hangers to correspond. So we're gonna take those off real quick and pull this whole entire bumper assembly off. And while removing the front bumper, we're gonna have to take off the 15mm 2 bolts on each side that go to the fog light bracket. Now we can just slowly start pulling the bumper back all the way out and set it down. Nice and gentle. Boom. And since we were taking off the bumper, I kind of waited on the headlights just so we have a little bit more clearance here to pull them off and not scratch any of the bottom of the headlight or anything like that. And then we will throw the bumper and everything back on once we get everything back from paint. But now we're gonna finish taking off the headlights off on both sides. So now moving on to the headlights that we've got all the 4 bolts off of on both sides. I'm just gonna lift up on the 1 tab on top, start sliding it back at an angle, and it's just gonna pop out in place. We're gonna lean it back to you, and we've got the 1 plug in the back. We're just gonna push in on that sensor, start to slide it out, and our headlight assembly is off of the truck. Gonna repeat that process on the driver's side now, and we'll have all of our lights ready for paint match. I gotta say, it makes it 100 times easier having the bumper off first. We're just gonna slide that tab off the top, pull down and out, and then unplug that 1 main plug harness. That powers the headlight, and just like that, we're out. Super easy, guys. And as you can see, we've got the whole front end off of the truck now, and I'm just gonna disassemble the bumper off camera. For the fog lights and all the other top plastics, those just pop off with clips, but then we're gonna be good to go for all of our pieces for the front. We're gonna move on to the side badges, the mirrors, and then towards the end of the truck. Side badges on the truck are super easy. Usually I just kind of stick my hand in behind, work it up, and then just start pulling away until it unclips from the tab. And you're just gonna keep working your hands around until you get that tab pulled out just like that, and on the bottom. And set aside, just like that. All the clips are intact. Like I said, it's gonna make a loud noise, but you are good. I'm gonna repeat that on the driver's side now, and then our badges are ready for paint match. Until you hear that tab pop off, and boom. Boom, and our tabs are out, and all of our inserts stayed in just like they should. So all of the badges are off the truck now, and we can move on to our side mirrors. So for these, I'm gonna go ahead and come inside the truck, and we are gonna pop off the little corner plastics on both sides. You can just kind of pull it by hand, just like that, and set it aside. And then we are gonna unplug both of these sensors right here. There's one just by hand, like there, real nice, and then there's a tiny little one. You're just gonna push it in, pull it out, and then we've got some 10mm bolts again. There's one here, and then 2 on the back side. And that's gonna completely take the mirror out. So again, we're gonna grab my favorite tool, the stubby impact, and start getting these 10mm off. Just be careful so you don't drop the mirror, and so you don't drop the hardware. I'm gonna set it all aside and leave it with the mirror. Pop those all the way off. And the mirror's not just gonna instantly fall off. Usually you can set all these 4 pieces off. You can see there's 2 that are bolts and 2 that are nuts for the mirrors. I'm gonna set those with all of our other things we've taken off today as far as the grille. But now we're gonna come onto the front side, and I'm gonna tug on the mirror and pull it out now. Before we're out, I'm gonna kind of lean the door in a little bit so we come out straight. I'm gonna start tugging on that mirror and pulling it straight out. Just like that, and the mirror assembly is off, and we can take it to paint match. And I'm gonna go ahead and repeat that process on the driver's side. Take all those 4 bolts off and pull the mirror off and set it aside. Then after, I always put my hardware back on the mirror so we don't lose it when we need, for when we need it to reinstall them. And as you can see, both of the mirrors of the truck are off, and man, this thing is just looking like an empty shell now, but I'm definitely gonna be excited to see how all this turns out, all paint match white. But for now, I'm gonna go ahead and close the hood down. And with all the side badges and the mirrors off, we're finally able to move to the back of the truck. I definitely think we're gonna start with the tail lights, then move our way onto the third brake light. I haven't decided if I wanna do the middle centerpiece on the tailgate yet, but I think it might be something we need to do. I think I'm gonna leave all the plastics on the rear bumper black though, just because they're stepped on. I don't want them to get all scratched up and messed up if they're painted. But definitely it's gonna look good and tie in the whole back end. So let's grab a little bit of an 8mm for the impact to get those taillights off. So first things first, I'm gonna pop down our tailgate, and we're gonna get to work on taking both taillights out. So easy enough, I'm gonna grab the 8mm socket on the impact, pop off both of these screws on each side, and I'm gonna gently tug on the light straight out. Just like that. And then we're gonna have the one plug just like the headlight, and we're just gonna take it off like that, set it aside. Then moving on to the driver's side, I'm gonna repeat the process, get those two screws out real quick. And set them aside and pull on the tail light right out and unplug our one little harness. And our tail light is out. And then what I always like to do, just like the front headlights and fog lights, I'm gonna go ahead and thread those screws back in the backing just so we still have them and we don't lose them. And before we move on to the third brake light, I'm gonna go ahead and drop the truck back down on the ground. Just so it's not wiggling at all. And set it on the ground with this last brake light. The third brake light is actually gonna be a T20. There's 4 screws. I'm just gonna pop those all off and pull the third brake light out. Just pull all these screws out, set them aside so we don't lose them. And then we're gonna grab this third brake light, just gently pry it back and unplug the 2 sensors in the back. And then once you've got the third brake light unplugged, we can set it aside, and I think that is our last piece for paint match. And one other thing I like to do to really tie in the look is take off that FX4 sticker to get rid of all the red on the decal. So I'm gonna grab my heat gun here, get it heated up and pull them off on both sides. And then one last thing I'm gonna go ahead and do is I popped up the clips to the mud flap, and I've got a 7mm on the little ratchet. I'm gonna take off the mud flaps on both sides. And I got that last bolt off on this side, and we're just gonna pop these mud flaps off and put the 2 screws back in our factory little plastic here to give it a nice little sleek look. So as y'all can see now, I've got all of the plastics taken out of the bumper just how I want. I'm gonna be painting all of the middle section and the tops and sides around the fog lights. But we've got all of the parts laid out and aside now, ready to go to Precision Built up near Dallas for a complete paint to match. And then we're gonna be picking them back up and reassembling everything here in the shop. And I'm gonna be dropping the axles to powder coat the springs and put on our Striker 4-link system. Once we go to powder coat all of that to match the truck as well. And the last addition we went ahead and did is throw in those leather mats. They aren't on my link in my bio on Instagram to the link tree, so check them out, and there is a discount code. And over to the driver's side and the rear, we've got them all set up as well and in place. Let me know what y'all think down below. But guys, that's gonna wrap it up for tearing apart the 2022 F350, so stay tuned for all the pieces. Once they're done at paint match and reassembling, I'm super excited to get it all back together. But if you did enjoy the video, make sure you leave a like down below, comment, let me know what you thought about the video and how you think it's gonna turn out paint matched, and subscribe to the channel if you haven't already. But other than that, I'll see y'all next time, and thank you for watching.